All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our Content Partner Series with McGraw Hill this morning. Again, you should be hearing audio right now. If not, please make sure that your volume is turned up and there is a sound check link on your panel if you're having any issues with that. You can always dial in. The phone number is included on here as well as in the invite that you received. For this webinar, you will have audio access only. So if you have any questions, there is a chat pod available and I will be answering these throughout the presentation this morning. And then if there's anything additional at the end, Mary will have some time to answer any questions that you might have. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mary and she will go ahead and get started.
All righty. Thank you so much, Madison. My name's Mary Breitbach. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I am able to.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. All right. My name's Mary Breitbach. I'm an implementation consultant here at McGraw Hill. And I do work with all the Ivy Tech instructors who are using our Connect program, our homework assessment tool, where you can go ahead and build your homework assignments in Connect and then go ahead and integrate those with the IvyLearn Canvas system. So we're going to go through quite a bit today, and that's why it's being recorded. We're going to talk about the kind of the basics and the overall layout of Connect. We're also going to look at what goes into building an assignment, and then also how to use a pre-built course. If somebody sent you a course to your course manager, we can look at how to edit those. Finally, we're going to end with integrating with the IvyLearn system, the Canvas system, when you're finished setting up your course. That's the last step that you will do. So we're going to start with the basics. I'm going to first log into Connect. I'm in my Connect account. You should have been given your login information. If for some reason you don't have the login information for Connect, you'll want to make sure to reach out to your McGraw Hill representative on campus and get that information. They can set you up with a Connect account. Some of you, when you log in, will have a course that's already been copied over to you or shared over to you from a course manager. Definitely all the statewide courses will be that way. But some of you who are teaching face-to-face may also have a course manager who's going to send that to you. Others are going to be asked to create your own course. And so we're going to kind of go through everything so that if you, whatever group you fall into, excuse me, you can go ahead and successfully create your Connect course or work in your Connect course. If you have a blank screen here, once you log in, you do have the ability to add a course yourself. So if you're going to be creating your course from scratch, that's very easy to do. You would just click here, enter your author. I think the author is always the best way to go. One thing I must caution you on, it's very important that you have the same author, title, and edition that is being used, that your students have adopted or that your school has adopted and your students are going to be purchasing. It must be the right edition. If you're looking at a different edition, your students will not be able to get access to. So you'll want to confirm that with your bookstore if you don't know for sure. Once your course is added, this is your sign-in page, your courses page. And we're going to go through some of these icons that are over here to the right. Let me make that a little bigger. The three icons you'll see now are a gear button, a little pie shell, and a student roster. The student roster, it won't show the students who are registered on the Ivy system in your class. These are going to be the students that will start to appear once they register for Connect. So once you post this in your Canvas system and students start to register into Connect, you can click there and actually see how many of your students are currently already in Connect. The Performance tab is just a quick link to get to your gradebook. You can get to that inside on the Connect homepage, and we're going to spend some time in that here in a little while. The gear button, we're going to actually look at some of the features in this. If I click on it, the very first thing you'll see is a registration sheet. I am showing you this because I do not want you to give that to your students. So that's a really important thing to know. Your students are going to go through the IvyLearn Canvas system to register for Connect. So you don't want them to go directly to Connect to get into your course. And here's why. We do want your students to have the benefit of a single sign-on, where all they have to do is go to one place to get everything for your course, whether it's Connect homework or your other assignments. They're all in one place. we also want your students to have grades synced to the Canvas gradebook. And so in order for their Connect grades to sync over, they do need to register through the Canvas system. And so don't give them this. I'm just showing you that because a lot of people might get confused if they see registration sheet. We don't want that to go to your students. You do have the ability to edit your section details. So if you wanted to change your name, maybe they sent you something that says master course and you want to name it for what you're teaching with your correct section, you can go ahead and just change that name and it will change that for you. So again, that was edit section details. The only other thing that really will be relevant to you would be your duplicate section. Let's say you're teaching multiple sections. You're going to go ahead and have the ability to duplicate that to create a replica of this. But you would do that after you go in and create your assignments or edit your dates and make sure that that course is ready for the fall. Then you would duplicate it so that you don't have to go through that process twice. So we'll come back to that in a little while. The last thing is your registration dates. You would set those up here in this 3 little dot drop down, and you have the ability to edit your time zone, edit your registration dates. And so you can go in and decide, okay, for this section, I want my students to have access to it starting on this date. If you want them to wait till maybe the first day of class and you don't have class till Tuesday, you can go ahead and change that. Students will be able to see Connect in Canvas once you pair it, but they're not going to be able to go in and register until the start of your date. The other thing is you can put a window of opportunity that you want them to register by. This does not mean that they're going to get cut off from access after that date. You're just saying, okay, I'm going to give you 3 weeks or 4 weeks where I want you all to register. After that, students will have to come to you and let you know that they didn't get in, and you would have to adjust that date for them. All right, to go into Connect, we're going to start looking at the layout and design and how to navigate within Connect. I'm going to click on the actual blue link. In my case, it's the Accounting 1013. I'm using an accounting course for this demonstration. Connect will function the same for any course that you're teaching within Connect. They'll just be different content. So it is relevant no matter what you're teaching. Along the top here, we have a home, a library, and a performance tab. These are the 3 tabs that will help you navigate around Connect. The home tab is where you'll go to see any assignments that you have, to see, you can grab the ebook from here. Here you can change your section information and things like that. So this is kind of your main home page. The library tab is where you'll go. If you want to, you can also grab the ebook from here. Many instructors like to know that the Instructor Resources can be gotten from, or you can get it from this library tab. So I'm going to go Library tab, Instructor Resources, and this is where it'll be a little bit different depending on your author and title, but each author has posted some things on their website, and as you notice, it launched us into a different site. From this site, I can grab the instructor manual, I can look at the PowerPoint presentations, and the test bank that's here would be the test bank you would use if you're going to administer a paper and pencil test or a test within Canvas that is not in Connect. So you have the Test Gen program that you can use to create tests there. The PowerPoints, you do have the ability to download all your PowerPoints, make edits to them so they flow with the way you teach your class, and save them to your desktop to use in class. So these are here, but they are in a format that can be edited. Back to my library tab, again, that was Instructor Resources. The last tab would be the Performance tab. This is where you can actually view a series of reports that's going to help you see how your students are performing on their Connect assignments. We'll just spend a few minutes on this now. This is a great call for us to have once your semester's underway. We can get on and actually look at your assignment or your performance reports and actually look at the real data from your students. But for today, just know the very first report under the Performance Reports tab is your assignments results. This is going to be your grade book. And although your grades will flow into the Canvas gradebook, you do have the ability to customize this assignment results, or if you're allowing multiple attempts on an assignment, you can see the various attempts there. So you can click on that, go in, choose what assignments you want to look at, choose if you're going to look at all the attempts or just their best attempt or the last attempt, or up by a specific date range. You have the ability to customize those reports to even give you more information, and then view the actual gradebook. Again, under that performance reports, I'm going to go to view all one more time. You have a lot of other reports that are available for you. These are for things when you're looking for really specific information. Maybe a student comes into your office and you just want to look at their grades instead of open up the whole grade book. You can type their name in with the performance report and just look at their grades. Under assignment statistics, you can get a at-a-glance low, high, average for each individual assignment. You can pick the assignment and see the low, high, average. Under item analysis, you can actually dig down deeper and look at a single question in a question bank and see how each student performed on that question. Category analysis lets you actually customize a report, and you're going to choose the information you want to see. Maybe you want to pull a report that shows all the learning objectives that were covered in each assignment that you have. You can do that. You can go by difficulty level. You can go by Bloom's taxonomy. So there's different filters that will allow you to build a category analysis report. At-risk report is a great report because you can just click a button and see if you have students falling behind. Rather than digging through the whole grade book and looking at all the grades and comparing them, this report will filter it out so that your students that are at risk are at the very top of the report. Those who are doing average work are in the middle in yellow, and those who are doing very well are in green at the bottom. So it gives you the chance to contact the students directly from this report. Their emails are there, and you can perhaps get them to come in and work with you or work with one of your TAs for remediation. The last report is a series of reports. If I click on the word Learnsmart, it's going to show you reports that will give you data on your students and if they're reading. So if you have Learnsmart assignments, we're going to look at what Learnsmart assignments are in a minute, but you can actually see through the whole term or through each chapter if your students are actually doing their reading and answering questions. And then you can also see if there's topics or challenging learning objectives or frequently missed questions, topics that they struggle with. You can see if there's areas that as a class they struggled with and you want to go back and talk about those with the class. We'll come back to the Learnsmart in just a moment. I'm going to go back to the Home tab. So those are the three tabs you navigate with. Over here you have a My Courses tab. That's just going to pop you out to that first sign-in page you were on. And if you do have multiple sections, once you divide those out, you'll see that you can switch from section to section. That button will appear here. Underneath that, we have the Instructor View and the Student View. So if you wanted to actually experience your assignments from a student perspective, you can go to Student View, and it will go ahead and show you what they're going to see. Now, the students would have each link in the Canvas IvyLearn system, but you can go ahead and just click on the assignment and see what it looks like from the student view. Students do also have the ability to grab their Smartbook or their Learnsmart assignments or their ebook from their view as well. Below the Instructor Student View, you have section information. This little gear button will give you the ability to edit that, so you can go ahead and add your picture, you can add your email address, your office hours, anything that you would want your students to see when they're in their student view. Below that, some of you will notice you have both the ebook and the Smartbook. That depends on your edition. Some of you who are using maybe a little bit of an older edition might just have the ebook here and the ability to grab Smartbook here. So this might vary a little bit depending on your author and title. But let me show you the difference between the ebook in the newer versions. Typically, these are your 2018 editions, and what Smartbook is. I'm going to click onto ebook first. It is a pretty traditional ebook, what you would expect from an ebook, where students are going to have all the content, and it will download all that content for them. They also have the ability here to go in and choose which chapter they're ready to work on. Scroll down here. My computer's catching up. I'm moving a little fast. So I can pick my chapter, I can pick my section, and it's going to let me go in and read that. Same thing that you would have as far as content goes if you had your book too. The only difference is students do have the ability right within this program to go ahead and highlight, and they can add notes, they can place bookmarks. They also have the ability to have it read to them. So in this case, it would just read what I've highlighted, but up in the upper right-hand corner, I would have the ability to click on that speaker and actually listen to this whole page. So there is a reader feature built into the new ebook. If you don't see that on yours, you might still be in an edition that uses the old ebook, and that would be coming in your new edition. Smartbook, on the other hand, is an adaptive learning program for your students. Smartbook is the name of the ebook. Learnsmart is the assignments that are built within it. So those names can be used pretty interchangeably sometimes. Students will go in, it's going to be the same content that we had in the ebook or that you have in your hard copy, word for word. The only difference is, in this case, you have the ability to not only assign it, but to see that your students are actually learning as they read. So you're going to go in, you're going to see, students will see all the sections of this chapter off to the left. It's going to load up the content here on the main page. Students can see that some of it is grayed out because there's going to be areas that are highlighted. They can click on it and just read it in a traditional fashion, or they can scroll ahead and look for the highlights. The highlights are going to emphasize the most important key facts that they need to look at this particular moment in time. We're not saying everything else is not important. We're saying we're going to highlight those key terms to give you a good starting point. If students decide they just want to read it in a traditional fashion, you know, every page in order, that's fine. They can just click on the page if it is grayed out and see everything. They can even down here in the lower left turn off those highlights. So students are still in control of their learning. When students are in, there's going to be a coach that's going to explain what the highlights are doing and how they're going to change as students answer questions. So as a student, I go through and read some. I will be prompted then, or I can at any time go down to the practice button in the lower left-hand corner. That's going to take me to questions. This is how we measure whether or not your students understand what they've read. So a student can go in and read a question, choose their answer, and then decide their confidence level in their answer. They know it, they think they know it, unsure, no idea. By choosing their confidence level, they're pausing for a moment to think about, okay, do I really know this or am I guessing? When they get it right, it's going to let them know that. If they go into another question and they're not sure, they can always go to read about it. We want the students to go back in the content and dig for the answers. Unlike a quiz where they're expected to recall something they learned before, they're in the learning process now. And so we want them to go in and read more. And this is where they'll start to read more on the pages. And then go back and answer their questions, rate their confidence level, and it's going to let them know. In this case, it let me know that I was wrong. It's letting me know why and giving me the right answer. So again, another teachable moment for your students. The one thing about these questions here, that they're asking is, every time I get one incorrect, it's going to remember that. And so it's not going to just let me pass. Okay, they learned it because we gave them the answers. I'm going to get another question about this topic. It's going to be worded differently, so I can't just remember the answer. But I'm going to be not given credit for knowing this yet until I answer a question about this topic correctly. When I get 3 or 4 answers in a row wrong, our coach is going to pop up and let me know that I need to read more. It's not doing any good for me just to be guessing, because I'm going to keep getting questions every time I get some wrong. So she's prompting me now to go back and read and learn the material and then come back and check with the practice questions to make sure I know it. So we try to make this program as efficient for students as possible. One other thing I'm going to point out before we go back to Instructor View is, as I answer questions, the highlights are going to change. So sometimes if I keep getting something wrong, I'll notice the highlights are in the yellow are starting to include more material. And if I get questions correct, I'll notice that the highlights are turning to green. As a student, I know then to focus on the yellow parts, the parts I'm not doing very well on, and the green parts, if I've answered questions correctly, I know, okay, I've already looked at that. I'm not going to spend time on that right now because I've already shown that I know it. Up here in this three little dot or line dot drop down, I do have reports as a student. That's going to show me missed questions that I had, challenging learning objectives that I have, my current learning status. How I'm earning points is by answering questions correct. I can go in as many times as I want, and it's always going to remember where I left off. And then when the due date passes, what will happen is I'll still be able to go in and read it and answer questions, but I'm not going to get any more points. All the points are earned by the due date because you want them to do their reading either before they come to class or before they start working on their homework. It's that comprehension level assignment. You want them to learn the concept. And as a student, I'll be able to see my progress and what percentage of the questions I got correct for each chapter as I'm going. Okay, so that is what the Learnsmart assignments look like from the student's perspective. I'm going to show you how these are added from the instructor side. Some of you may have a pre-built course and you already have Learnsmart assignments built in, but I do think it's still good to see how they were built so you can see the decisions that were made behind them. So I'm going to build one from scratch. I'm going to go to the Add Assignment button on the home page and go to the Learnsmart button. It's the second one there. This is where it's going to show all the chapters that are available, all the chapters in my book, and I'm going to choose a chapter. I'll just choose chapter 3 here and choose the Assign button. There's only a couple decisions that go into these as an instructor. You don't have to come up with all the questions. That's already built into the program because there's hundreds of questions built in, because every time I get questions wrong, I'm going to get more in its place. Under the topics area, that's going to give me a chance to check topics that I'm not going to cover or I don't feel are as critical as other topics. You're not going to cover everything in the book. And so here for chapter 3, I can go ahead and uncheck some topic areas. Students will still have access to that content. They're just not going to have questions asked to them about those areas. And so I've unchecked the ones I don't feel that they need to have questions asked to them about. Then I'm going to focus on the average amount of time it's going to take the students. This is the time it's going to take them to answer the question. This is not their reading time. It's just the question answering. And so students will go in and do the reading on their own, and then they're going to answer questions. 103 questions is kind of their starting point here, or the average of what they're going to answer. That's a lot to ask your students just to learn the chapter, and it would take the average student about 117 minutes to do it. So that's where you can adjust the depth of coverage. And you can turn that down to what you feel would be an appropriate amount of time for them to spend answering questions after they've done their reading. In this particular case, they'll all have an average of about 40 questions. Remember, that'll change. And it'll take them an average of about 30 minutes. They're not going to get cut off after 30 minutes. Some students will do it quicker, some will take longer. So once the time and the topics are checked, if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, that's where you're going to go ahead and decide how many points each chapter is worth. So students will earn points. So you're saying, okay, if you do chapter 2 and complete the reading, I'm going to give you 10 points. Now that's not a completion grade. As a student, if I go in maybe 5 different times before the due date and answer questions and answer 85% of the questions correct, and the due date passes, I will get 85% of whatever points were assigned. So in this case, I would get an 8.5 on this assignment. So you're giving the students credit for answering questions correctly. It might take me as a student 5 questions to get a topic correct. That's okay. I'm still going to get credit for it once I get it right. So we want students to stick with it. Finally, on the last page, you have an available and a due date. The available date is nice. It's optional for you to put an available date in because they can always continue on and read ahead by the table of contents. But by you putting an available date, you're saying, okay, during this week is when I want you to be reading this chapter, and we have class. We're going to cover chapter 3 on the 29th, and class is at 10 o'clock. I want you to finish it before class. You might even put down 9 o'clock or the night before, or something that you're going to give them points for. So here I'm saying that it's due here. After that, students can go in and continue working, but they will not earn any more points. It's just a self-study. So I'm encouraging them to do this before class. So when they come to class, they know the basic material, and I can then start to talk about how to apply it rather than just the basic term. If I go back to my home page, the assignment I just built is here. And as a student, then they will see that they have an assignment in their Smartbook when they open it up to the table of contents. That is where these performance reports really become relevant, because students will, and we won't go through them, but I just want you to know that you can actually go in and see whether or not students have completed. For example, in the student detail, you can go right before class, that when you're going to cover that chapter 3, and say, okay, let me look. You'll see, this is a sample, but you'll see your actual students by name. You'll see real times that they've spent, and you'll see what percentage of those questions they've answered correctly. So it's, in this particular case, I'm looking at it thinking, okay, good, my students are ready for a deeper discussion on this topic. You can see it the whole semester, chapter by chapter, or again, look at missed questions, challenging learning objectives, or topics that they struggled with. So there's some great details for you as to whether or not they've done their reading. All right, moving on, there are other types of assignments that you can have. That was the reading assignment. Many of you will want to assign homework or quizzes, or even some practice questions for your students. Under Add Assignment, they will all be created the same way. So I'm going to build a sample assignment for you. Clicking on Add Assignment, I'm going to go to the question bank. This is where it'll be set up a little different, because I'm going to actually choose what this assignment is and pick the question. All the chapters are going to be here. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just pick chapter 3. And in this particular case, there's a lot of different types of questions. This is an accounting class. There's going to be practice problems. There's going to be exercise. There's going to be ledger problems. Some of you might go in and there might just be a test bank and a quiz bank. The quiz bank might have some more interactive things. So this is where you're all going to spend some time and look at the type of questions that are available, and you can just select those to look at. I'll just pull up the algorithmic test bank. In my particular case, I have static and algorithmic, and because there's numeric problems in accounting, it's just showing me that I can give them static problems where everybody does the exact same problem. Those are typically the ones you'd see at the end of the chapter if you're looking at problems. Or algorithmic, where all the students will have the same question but different numbers attached. All right, so I picked the category I want, and that you can mix and match those two in an assignment. I'm just going to name this chapter 3 sample homework. You can put your own instructions in here if you would like, and then you're just going to work your way down. So I'm going to go kind of top to bottom, left to right is how we're going to work. So I'm going to go add questions. Right now there's 71 questions from this specific test bank. I personally would not want to read through all those, so I can go over here to the filters off to the left and narrow it down. I'm not a true false fan, so I can say, okay, I only want multiple choice, and I can pick those. I can also then go to difficulty level or learning objectives or topics and choose the areas that I want to cover in this homework assignment. And so once it's going to narrow that down further. And if I take some off, it's going to narrow that down even more. So it's going to give me the ability to kind of focus on what I want to assign for my students. From there, then, I can click on the question. I have 40 questions here, and it's going to give me the question. I just chose multiple choice. It's going to show me the correct answer. Of course, your students won't see that. And here's where you can see the difficulty level, the learning objective. And if I like this question, I can just go ahead and add it and scroll through and add the ones I like. I'm going to go back to the list. So you can see that I've added these two. I'm not looking at them individually anymore. I'm looking at the list. I can go ahead and add some more if I know what the ones I want to add just by clicking here. Or if I wanted to, I do have the ability to create a pool. So maybe out of all 40 of these, I'm going to select them all by choosing the top box and build a pool. And I'll just call this chapter, I think I'm in chapter 3. And I can say, okay, I want all my students to do 10 out of these 40 questions, but I want them to be different for every student. So we won't get into pooling in detail, but I just want you to know you do have the ability to add questions individually or in pools. Once I've added my questions, I can organize. This is going to show me the makeup of my assignment. I had picked 5 multiple choice, and then I picked a pool as well. You can certainly delete things if you'd like. Actually, I'll delete my pool. And you can always go back and add things, even adding things from different question sources. So maybe I also wanted to add a video or a exercise or a problem. You can select a different question source and write within the same assignment, add from different places. Organizing lets me set all my points. I can go in and say, okay, this is a 15-point assignment, and it'll spread those out for me. It'll also adjust it if I add or delete questions. Moving on, you're always looking for the blue button. Typically on an assignment like this, it'll be in the lower right-hand corner. And this is where we get to the last phase of our assignment. You will have the ability to choose your dates if you're ready to. If not, just leave it at once it's assigned. But if you want to choose your date range, you can certainly go in there and say this is when it's going to be available and this is when it's due. Once you decide your due date, you will have the ability to decide if you're going to accept late submissions and even reduce the score for every day or hour that it's late, or you can have it automatically submit on the due date. So if a student's only halfway finished, that's what will get turned in when your due date and time comes. Finally, you're choosing your categories: homework, practice, quiz, or exam. This is where you're deciding what type of an assignment it is. Typically, homework is for points, and it's giving the students the ability to practice what they've learned and apply the skills that they've learned. Practice often is where you would take maybe the whole test bank and put it in a pool and let them use that to get ready for their midterm or final where they're doing practicing. It might also be where you're assigning all of the problems and exercises so students can go through and work on that. Often you see these for 0 points. Quizzes and exams can also be administered. All of them have the ability to look at advanced settings, and this is where you'll set up different settings depending on the assignment type. I'm just going to edit the first one and we'll go through them real quick. Under the basic setting, you can decide if you want a time limit on it. I would not want that for my homework assignment, but maybe for my quiz I would, because then I would know that the students have that sense of urgency when they go in to take it, that they're only given 20 minutes during this quiz to take it or however much time you assign. You can allow printing if you want. This is often used if students are going to work through numeric things on paper, give them a chance to print it out, and then they come back and answer put their answers in later. You can also scramble questions so they fall in a different order. And then password protect will give you the ability to administer an exam where they go to a computer lab or a test lab, show their ID to get the password in order to take this assignment in that environment. Number of attempts is next. You have the choice of 1, 2, 3, or unlimited for your homework or for your practice or your quizzes. For all of these, you can go ahead and change that. And then you can set it up where you're either starting over on each new attempt. So the first attempt, I'll be given the assignment. Second attempt, I can start over. And if I have a question pool, I'll be given new questions, a new pool. If you keep it at revised previous attempt, it means I'm going to look at what I had and go ahead and revise that. Starting over, I get a blank assignment. Resources, you have a lot of different choices here. You can keep the ebook on or turn it off. Question, title, point value, references would be your learning objectives. You can keep those on or turn them off. If there are hints available, you can keep them on or turn them off. Some of the problems may have hints available. Not everything does, though. Checking your work gives your students the ability to see if they're right or wrong, but it's not going to be when they turn it in, it'll be right away. So you would want to limit that, how many times they can use that for questions. Some instructors like to keep it on for homework, and they'll definitely turn it off for quizzes. Finally, you have feedback. This is where after the student turns in their work, you are going to decide what they see. I have instructors that will call me later and say, all the students can see is their score. They never got the answers. And that's because they set it up where they would only see the score. So you make sure the students are seeing what you want them to see. It can be total score or nothing at all. It can be total score before the due date and all the answers after the due date, so that they can do a second attempt without having the answers given to them first. It can be where they see their score and whether or not they're right or wrong with correct and incorrect indicators, but not be given the answers. Or you can give them the answers or answers with solutions right away. So it's completely up to you. And then you would go ahead and set those for your different attempts. Holding feedback means they're not going to see anything at all until after a date. So if you have multiple attempts, you wouldn't want to hold the feedback from that first attempt because they would never know if they should go back and do the second attempt. So this is typically used for exams. Scrolling down, you can set it as a default, and that will give you the ability to make it a default. So anything I build in homework assignments or anything I've already built with that homework category will default to the settings that you have in place or that you want in place. I'm just going to apply it to this assignment only. Again, I'm always going to look for that blue button in the lower right-hand corner. I'm going to review it and get ready to assign it, and then I'll assign it. If you have multiple sections and you're just building a new assignment, you will see all your sections here, and you can actually place that assignment in all the different sections. So then my new assignment is here, and I can go in and look at the assignments from that student view. The reason why it's important, even if you have a pre-built course built for you already and you're just going to be maybe editing your dates, to know what goes into these so you can know what the students are going to experience, what their policies might be. If you had a pre-built course given to you, feel free to go in and click on any of the assignments. And that's where you can preview it. You can look at the policies and see what the policy settings are, feedback and basic. Or you can actually, if you're given permission by your course coordinator, you can actually go in and edit these if you're allowed to edit them. Sometimes pre-built courses, you're not allowed to edit them, but that's where you can go ahead and add questions, take out questions. It's going to bring you into that building of the assignment phase, set your policies, review and assign. And again, make sure you're always following those blue buttons to keep it assigned. Many of you now, let's talk for a minute for those of you who are getting a pre-built course. Many of you are given a pre-built course where you know this is what you're going to be using for assignments in Connect. You can actually click open all the folders, just some of the folders, if you have week-by-week folders, or just look at all the assignments. And to the right of them, you have little checkboxes. This will give you the ability to adjust the dates. So you might have the assignments you need, but they might not be the dates that you want. And so you can go ahead and check on multiple chapters at a time, or just one chapter, or even just a couple assignments. And scroll up to this 3-square drop-down menu. It's right above our assignment list on the home page. And go to Manage Dates. Once it clicks me in here, I can set all my start and end dates for those assignments the same, or go up here to Individually, where I can actually go through one by one and change all my dates at once. So it's a much quicker way than opening every assignment for you to adjust your dates. And for some of you, that's all you'll have to do with the course that was shared with you, is just go in, click on your folders, or click on your assignments and manage your dates. You do also have the ability to either add or edit groups. Groups would be the folders that each of these are in. So I have a folder for this particular sample for every chapter. You can go ahead and manage those. You have the ability to delete assignments. So, you know, assignments that I created for my sample, I can go ahead and delete. Or if you're in there exploring, you can delete those. You can also show and hide things from students. So if you know for chapter 1, you don't want them to see this quiz, they won't be able to open it until your start date, but you can actually hide it from them and not put it into your IvyLearn, and they won't be able to get to it then. All right, I know we're covering a lot today. I'm almost finished. We've talked about the basic layout and design of Connect. We've talked about building assignments as well as editing for a pre-built course. We're going to look at how to integrate with the IvyLearn system. But there's one thing I want to do before we move over to the Canvas program, is I'm going to go up to my courses. If I'm in a situation where I am teaching multiple sections, the first thing I'm going to do is go in and adjust the dates and adjust the assignments, make sure everything's set up within Connect on the home page like we were just doing. And then I can go over here to this gear button now and duplicate. And this is where I'll take off the word copy of, and I will put in my other section number and go ahead and save that. And I can just X out of this one. This is going to create a replica of this that I just had. And if you click into it, you'll see it's the same thing. So maybe you would just adjust the dates. Maybe this comes on a different day and you'd want to adjust your dates for that one as well. But otherwise, everything you did in that first group will duplicate over to the second group. And those two now are individuals, because you're going to have individual places within your Canvas to pair that with. Okay, so I'm going to switch over. Let me click out of some of this to Canvas. When you log into Canvas, and this is just a McGraw Hill sandbox, so I'm just kind of looking on one. This is actually attached to somebody else's connected course, so, but I'm just going to go through how the integration starts. It is a one-to-one pairing. So for every course shell you have in Canvas, you need a course shell in Connect. So if you're teaching 2 sections and you have 2 sections in Canvas, you'll need to have 2 sections in Connect by duplicating like we just did. First of all, we need to get the McGraw Hill setting over here. If I look over here on the left-hand side, I don't see McGraw Hill Connect. And so I'm going to go down here to the settings button, and this is where I can add it. Once I hit the settings button, I can come up here to navigation. It's right in the middle on the top. And this is going to show me what is visible and what I need to add. And so I'm going to find the McGraw Hill Connect button, grab onto it with my cursor here or my mouse, and drag it up and place it where I want it. So I might want to put it right there. Now it's not showing up yet because I do need to scroll down and hit save. Once I've added it, it's going to show here where I placed it. Now we're ready to integrate. So I'm going to go to McGraw Hill Connect. And this is going to allow me to authorize. You need to make sure you authorize that you are requesting to pair up your Connect section with your Canvas section. So I've authorized. From that point, I'm going to see where I can pair with the Connect section. And I'm going to go here. Now let me stop for a moment. Some of you have a pre-built course that is already also replicated in Connect. Just because you have assignments here doesn't mean they're linked yet. You still need to pair your Connect section with your Canvas. So this pairing with the Connect section is a step you're going to have to take. It's going to take you in here and show your name. I'm working now in somebody else's account, but you're always going to pair it with an existing Connect course because you already have that built out. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. You're going to scroll down and find whichever. Some of you will just have a couple choices. You're going to find whichever applies to you. I'll just pick this first one. Remember, I'm in somebody else's now. And then that's where you're going to look for the name of your course. So what you've named it, typically I recommend you do put the fall 2017 in there. If this happens to not be the right one, you can check the other one and it will have the right one that you want there. You would probably have taken the master out of your title and put in your course number. From there, once you pick the one you want to pair it with, you're just going to save. And this is letting me know that we're paired. Now, if you're not logged into Connect at the time, you may be asked to log into Connect first as part of those steps. You can always go into your Connect section homepage by clicking here, or you can return to your Canvas by clicking the orange button to the left. Now you can see when I'm in here, it shows me that I'm paired, and I can go to that Connect section if I want. For those of you who have the assignments already built out in IvyLearn, this would be the statewide instructors. If you were to go to your assignments folder, it might be dimmed out here because it's not ready yet for your students. You might see that you have a list of assignments already there that are some from Connect and others not. So in this case, I have my Learnsmart assignments there. They're not live linked yet if I just did the pairing. I need to actually open the lines of communication between my Connect section and this. So that's where you go to McGraw Hill Connect. And again, this is just for your statewide instructors. You'll go to your McGraw Hill Connect, and you're going to go to this middle section here that says Relink Assignment from a Copied Course. You had a copied course. And not only did they give you the course in Connect, but they also gave you a copied section in your Canvas. And so you're just going to relink. That's going to take all of your Connect information and pull it into the assignments that are here. For those of you teaching statewide, that's really all you'll have to do. Then you can come back here. It's always going to fall under the assignments folder. and you can check those links by clicking on the assignment and just make sure it truly launches you to your Connect course. Some of you might have it also where they've placed it in modules. They'll all initially go into the assignments, but they can then be moved to modules very easily. For those of you who don't have a statewide course, once you finish that first pairing process and you see go to my Connect section, you can click on that and go there. And from there, this is a different one that we were working on because I'm now paired up to somebody else's in our IvyLearn sandbox, but it will show you it's your course. It'll show you your name. And now you'll see all the assignments that you were working on. And if you click on these same buttons that we chose when we were going to adjust the date, now in that 3-square drop-down menu, we also have deploy. This is where you're going to push those assignments into Canvas because they weren't there already where you just needed to relink them. And once you hit deploy, I'll just do it with one here. Once I go to deploy, it's going to go ahead and ask me what grade type I want to send over. Typically, it's the best grade. And it's going to let me know that an icon will appear once it's done. It's pretty instantaneous, so you'll just watch for it. And right now, this one assignment that I placed in will actually show up. And now if I go back to my IvyLearn system and I go under assignments, you can click on that one chapter. Let me find where it's located here. Again, I'm using somebody else's now, so bear with me while I find it. Chapter 1, I think it was this one. Let me click on that. It'll go ahead and if it is the right one, it's going to launch me right out to my Connect. And so I don't need to go and log into Connect anymore. I can toggle back and forth real easy. It took me into that assignment, and the home button will always let me go. So I can go to IvyLearn my Canvas, or I can come back and forth to Connect very easily. One final thing I do want to talk about. Up in the McGraw Hill Connect, where you can also go to your Connect section, you also have the ability to grab the Smartbook, to look at the Connect library from here. We did look at that relinking. That's just for that first time. For those of you who have maybe a student and there's a couple grades that didn't flow over, or maybe you changed your dates on an assignment after it was in Canvas and you want to make sure that that new grade is reflected in your Canvas as well as in Connect, change the grade or change the points or the dates, whatever you're going to change in Connect. Come over here and just run a manual sync. That's kind of like a refresh, and that will give you the ability to make sure the information that's current in Connect is being pulled into your Canvas shell. The gradebook will also then show you, let me find the gradebook, there it is. The gradebook will go ahead and show you the columns from your Connect assignments as well. Those will automatically be added. There's a lot here because there were other things in there, but the columns will already be added through that process of deploying those assignments. And once students complete their assignments and the due date passes, you'll start to see those grades come into the Canvas shell. One thing to tell you about manually changing grades. Let's say you're in your gradebook and a student performs 80% on a Learnsmart assignment and you found out they got sick and they wanted some extra time. You can go ahead and manage an extension for them in Connect. But let's say you just decided, you know what, I'm just going to give them the extra points. You can come in here and make a manual adjustment in your Canvas gradebook. But please know that when you run a manual sync, let me go into my Connect page again. When you run a manual sync, it's going to pull in the most current grades from Connect. So it'll override that manual adjustment that you made. So if I were you, I think the easiest way to do it is to just wait and do all your manual adjusting of scores at the end of the term when you're not going to be doing any more manual syncs. Otherwise, make sure when you do run a manual sync, you're going back and changing those, because the gradebook's always going to pull in your Connect grades. And so if you've made an adjustment in the Canvas gradebook, you'll want to make sure to change that back. We covered a lot today. That's why we recorded it. It's here for you. But please know I'm here for you. Again, it's Mary Breitbach here at McGraw Hill. I'm your implementation consultant. And so anytime you have questions, you can shoot me an email or jump on my scheduler and go ahead and schedule time with me to go through this. I'm here all semester to answer your questions as you go. And I'm going to turn it over to Madison then and see if she has any further questions that I need to answer come in.
Yeah, we did not get any questions throughout the presentation. So if you have any questions that you would like Mary to go over, we have about 10 minutes left. You can type in the questions box and we'll try to get those answered. If no questions, then thank you for coming today. Again, this was recorded, so if you need to go back and review any of the information, it is available to you. We also have some McGraw Hill and other third-party content guides that you have access to in the IvyLearn, the Faculty Resource Center within IvyLearn, which is where this recording will be posted as well.
All right, we'll just wait a little while for questions. Feel free to type those in. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, you're free to hang up. And thank you so much for joining us today.